I realize Dyslexia Association has become like a huge family to me because I've done quite a bit of training the last year, and Lee Xiang very wisely mandated that they should all go. But later I felt so proud of them because as an organization, they have now been so much more upskilled in the area of ADHD. So I see all the sheepish smiles everywhere. But yes, you're all my dear friends now, okay? Like I came yesterday, I'm like, wow, I don't feel so lost. Yeah, so I think most of you know a little bit about me, and she gave us a good intro. So I won't say so much about myself, because I think what we say about our family will explain a bit more, but I'll give the chance for my husband to share about himself.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. As usual, I think I see a lot more women and mothers here than fathers. I'm glad to be here to stand with the women and the mothers, and also to stand up for the fathers. As per the intro, I actually carry dual roles at work. I'm a senior specialist as well as a director that has leadership and management duties. So my work is varied and can be quite taxing. I'm very thankful that Tina is a very committed stay-at-home mom since day one. Not because she cannot find credible employment, full-time employment, nor is she a rich tai-tai, but because she is convicted to a critically important task, especially when parenting a child with diverse special needs. We never have a helper at home, neither have we depended on our parents for caregiving, and that has allowed us to work things out as a couple. So we are glad to be here to share our journey. I wouldn't call it a keynote, as per our Dr. Bloomfield here. We will just share our heart, and hopefully it will be useful for some of you in the audience.
Yep, thanks, dear. Okay, so these are our sons. They are already 20. I just put it in the order of how they're standing, okay? That's why it's not, don't mean to confuse you. So the one on your left is actually the youngest, but he is now the tallest. So he's 15, and then the one in the middle is the oldest, but he's the shortest. He's 21. And then the one on the right is 20. And the one on the right, John, is our middle child. He's the one that plunged us into special needs because at 6 years old, he was diagnosed with dyslexia as well as ADHD. And then at 10, he was diagnosed with autism spectrum. So because of my background in social work and psychology, you would think I'll be the best parent ever. But no, I still had my misconceptions. I thought I had it all, under control. I got him a dyslexia interventionist, and she did one-on-one with him. And on the ADHD part, I just said, okay, I think I just need to be stricter because he was my number 2. So, they're very close in age, and I'm sure I must have just given him a lot of chance compared to barking at my number 1, right? So obviously that didn't work. For 6 months, things sort of fell apart. And I realized that, hey, wait a minute, I actually don't know that much about special needs, ADHD or dyslexia, and that started my journey, our journey of really finding out, reading up, and also not blaming each other. I think it's so easy, right? And I always make this joke, and I said, yes, as Frankie mentioned, we look after our own children, and that was in a way a blessing because then I couldn't blame other people. Right? Because a lot of Singaporeans, unfortunately, the way we parent, we have a lot of outsourcing. So we first blame what? Teachers in school, right? Or something, Then we blame grandparents, overdote on them, And then we blame our domestic helpers, etc., etc. And then, of course, we still blame ourselves because we are the one that made those choices, especially mothers, right? So the mother guilt is a very big and very real thing. First I will share an overview of the challenges that our children face. It is called parenting diverse needs because it wasn't just one special need. My one middle son has all 3 of the most common special needs, but they also then went on to develop mental health struggles as well. So starting off with getting to know the main classic conditions, I think after that we were introduced to things like anxiety, depression, even suicide ideation. You want to say a bit?
I guess something that is quite real to me that hit me very hard several years ago when John expressed to me about the fact that I could be rejecting him and causing him a lot of emotional pain. I guess those of you who are in this field of work, you know that rejection sensitivity is very high among children with such special needs. So it was just a simple expression of me shaking my head. Yeah, because I'm not a very verbal person as compared to Tina. So sometimes when he does wrong, instead of reprimanding him with words, I would just shake my head, thinking that it's a milder form of showing my disapproval for doing something wrong, especially when he's rude to Tina, which I think is not acceptable. So I would shake my head. But later on, he revealed to me that that is something that caused deep emotional pain in him. It's a sign of disappointment. It's a sign of rejection, something which I need to deeply apologize to him and seek his forgiveness as well. So that's something which impressed upon me very deeply. Nowadays, I would never do that anymore. Something that I need to highlight, because some men may do that. Sometimes because in your tiredness and in the fact that you are, he doesn't want to add on to the commotion at home and things like that, you may just use body language to express your disapproval. But take note that this can be something that is even more painful and more hurtful, to a child with, special needs.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I always appreciate, how transparent Frankie is able to be, and how we are able to stand together to share also, openly our mistakes. All of you have heard, gone through a course with me. I don't often have the chance to share where I got there, but how I got there, because I made all the mistakes too, and I don't want you all, even whether you're parents or educators, to make the same mistakes. So in a way, we are very open to share our struggles. It's really not easy as a parent. As I said, with whatever background you have, we often still have to upskill ourselves. And it often has to be child-specific. Okay, so John often has this rant. Okay, he has this rant where if you want to talk to him, he will say that because he was diagnosed so early, at 6 years old, just before P1, I didn't apply for mother tongue exemption for him straight away. Okay, because we came back from overseas, so I had 2 boys entering, primary school, and the older one didn't have all of this, and they still had to struggle with mother tongue. And I thought, being a loyal Singaporean, they should still learn Mandarin, So anyway, that led to the 10-year-old mark. That's why he was diagnosed also with ASD, because I had to go and review all his diagnosis in order to submit for application for his exemption. But at that point, because he was being managed by a really caring teacher in school, primary 3 and 4, he came out as not conclusively dyslexic. So he has this rant, like I'll say, if you do very well, and if you are, work hard, and you manage yourself, people will think you're no longer dyslexic. And then blah, blah, blah. And then he'll have this, rolling his eyes and all that. And by the way, he's 20. If you start that conversation with him, he will still tell you that. So it's very, the needs are not so classic, right? It's not just a label, it's what he goes through. And it's very interesting because as parents, we always think about accommodations. But for him, as an ADHD young person, he will say, but what can they do to help me? Because he was going through a very tough time in his secondary school. He did really well. He went to the art school, but academically and the way they manage, it requires very high executive function, which is his struggle. He was very interested in his subjects, but he couldn't keep up. So he was really falling behind, and he, at one point he had to either repeat a year or we didn't know, like either get kicked out or something. So he didn't know at first what was going to happen at the end of the year. And we were trying to communicate with the school, ask, let's tell them a bit more, and he kept saying, but what can they do? Can they just say, don't hand in work? That would be great, because he wanted that. But he said, no, they can't, and he will even say, and I also feel bad to ask for anything because I know I will still disappoint them. Like, let's say I ask for an extension, I get, 2 days or 1 week later, but I still cannot meet that deadline. And I'm going to disappoint them. So why ask for it? So, that kind of listening to him made me realize it's not so straightforward. Like as a parent, you always feel you want people to accommodate, or like he has needs, right? Like Martin said, all the deficits, all the, so a bit of medical model, I apologize there. But to them, it's just them. And he really wants to try hard to deliver on time. And he feels, no, there's no reason why I should be given an extension, just because I couldn't understand or I couldn't really deliver. So I'll just be late, But then it doesn't help him, right? Because in this school, if you're late like 1 day, you're already down like 25% from your grade. Late 2 days is 50% off. Something like that is like very dramatic, okay? So it was really learning how to support him the way he needed. And that's why we titled today Diverse Needs. Because even though I list some of these and they have names, but the package of it is very unique for each individual and each child. Yeah, just to mention, so our number 3, so when he was going through this, our number 3 was only primary 5. So John was Sec 3 when he was going through his almost kick out of school thing. And number 3 was primary 5. And just starting primary 5, he suddenly had a huge issue with anxiety. He had school refusal, he didn't want to go to school, kept saying, I hate school. And he was the one that loved school. He has no, not that I know of, no learning difficulties at all. But it was a big struggle for him. That was 2020, and that was the year of COVID. So COVID was like a miracle to him because suddenly he didn't have to go to school. So he loved lockdown. Yeah, we were just joking to ourselves saying, wow, God knows how to answer your prayer, like, because he started the year saying, I hate school. Whose stupid idea is school? Pardon my language. Because he loves to learn, but he doesn't want to go to school to learn. He wants to learn on his own. Yeah, so that was the start of his very dramatic journey. He ended up not attending school for the rest of P5, and the entire P6 he was out of school. He had to see a psychiatrist, which didn't really help, and saw a psychologist, also didn't really help. And his brothers were looking at him and also very worried because his older two, they are like 5.5, 6 years gap between them. So with the number 2 having that anxiety, number 3 also had this like major thing. And that was also quite shocking to us too, because he was always that little angel. No problem from him, just stand down there quietly. You will forget he's there because he's so compliant. He will not be disruptive compared to our ADHD one. You all laugh because our ADHD case studies, right? Like throw table, all this thing. No, he would just sit there. But actually, he was cowering in fear. Okay, he would sit there with eyes wide open because he's so afraid to be scolded, although he's never ever scolded. But this, catastrophizing situation was something that he really struggled with. And then he also had a suicide ideation issue. Number 2 had too. And then more recently, my number 3 also, after he went through NS, he had a really big, challenging bout with life and purpose, and also almost attempted, to take his own life. So it's not easy, it's not straightforward. The ones that you think have no issues sometimes suddenly come up with things as well. That was our journey. Yeah, you want to add anything or move? Okay, so, so in this whole thing, what is the caregiving journey for the parent like? What are our priorities? And I love it that Martin just now said, right, that the men are more reliable, right? And oftentimes women are not taken seriously. And unfortunately, this is actually that kind of differential or the issue that spouses face. Okay, how many here are mothers of special needs child? Thank you very much. Yeah, for your hands raised. And how many of you have been the first one to notice that something and you are the one motivated to find out more about it? Okay, almost the same hands, right? Yeah. Oftentimes it's this way. I don't mean discriminatory towards the men, but it often happens because the mother is more in tune emotionally as well, that, hey, there's something not quite right? It's not just about effort, it's not just my child is dumb or low IQ, there's just something, right? That is just not quite right. Obviously, the mom's perspective is often emotional. Yeah, there's often a huger response in terms of the daily thing, like, oh dear, how is he going to survive in school? Like, oh dear, his parents, the teachers are going to not understand. And then, oh dear, he's going to get bullied. And it often is wrapped around but in an emotional response. This doesn't help because then the husbands, right, the men in the family or in the situation would often then think it's the mom overreacting. Oh, it's just you being overprotective, right? It'll be fine, right? Because fathers are all that push them in the pool and then they struggle, they will learn to swim, right? But mothers must put floaty, right? So it's just different the way we are made. But I'm saying this really to also allow the men in the room and also the women to give yourself more understanding. Okay, because oftentimes the men don't listen to us because this is our strength. But it's nothing wrong with you being this way. All right, this is the way we are wired. But one of the things that does drive us is to find out why and to find out the real causes. So that clarity is also very important. That's why I'm so amazed also. So many of the EdTs are also parents, of DAS are also parents with special needs children, and you also all have big hearts for this because you also want to know how to help your own child, and then you're so motivated you also help other children. Okay, so this clarity is very important. Okay, we don't just remain in the emotions. Okay, men, we do want to find out exactly what the issues are, even though we cry in the process, lah. You know, and there's a lot of emotions in the process. And I think the key thing that we will talk about in one more slide as well. But we do need support in the process, okay? And that's why I know that special needs, even mental health issues can be a huge strain on marriages, yeah, because both husband and wife have very different approaches and very different ideas about what to do or what we should not do, or what the problem is in the first place. And I think just to let you all know, it's something that we do need to take seriously, getting the support of our husbands and our families around us. Don't just be that one champion that will be that superhero for your family or for your son or daughter and disregard everyone else around you. Okay, yes, they may not take you seriously initially, but there are ways to collaborate. Yeah, and I think that's something I really appreciate with Frankie, that we were able to talk through this over time. I mean, it's not easy, you know. There are many times when you go ahead, because you find out first, right? Then you turn around and you see your husband and you're like, hey, you cannot like that, or no, this is not the way. And you end up, instead of collaborating, you bark at them or you put them down. And that's the worst thing for men too. You know, if you keep shutting them off, they will shut down as well. It's okay, like, go ahead, you can champion it. I'll just be here, you know, you tell me whatever, or I don't bother, right? Because when I come into the picture, you tell me off or you're upset. Yeah, so over to you, dear.
Okay, I will share about the father's roles. Yeah. Facts versus feelings. I think I'm speaking in general. I wouldn't say it's a blanket statement for all men. I think most men would need more facts to appreciate an issue. Yeah, so I really appreciate the research and sharing that Tina has done over the years. So I will continue to affirm her and empower her, you know, do more research and feed me with the information. Yeah, so guys, you need to take, men and fathers, you need to take intentional effort to learn and learn continuously. Yeah, it's not about just knowing a little bit and then you assume that you know everything. Yeah, because there are a lot of diverse needs. There are a lot of co-occurring needs that requires your attention throughout, you know, the lifetime of your child. Yeah, so that portion is really important, right? It's about the issues. It's not about the fluffy feelings and all that. Yeah, and secondly is to solve and don't blame. Okay, even mothers, you may tend to blame the fathers, especially if they are not involved. So try not to blame, and fathers, don't blame it on your wife. That is because of her, you know, being too emotional. That's why the child is behaving like that. Yeah, don't blame your helper. Don't blame the child care center. Don't blame any other carers that are in your midst. So there is value in you committing a lot more to the parenting journey, so that you have no one to blame but yourselves, to make sure you learn how to manage it. It's not about sending your child out for intervention and that's it. A lot got to do with your day-to-day management at home. I think that's key. Yeah, and importantly, as Tina said, you need to tag team. Between the spouses. I need to tag team a lot with Tina to make sure that we are aligned in our views, aligned in our approaches and strategies, decision making. Yeah, and to be able to complement and cover each other like a tag team. Like in wrestling, you know, you see the wrestling match, right? Once you are tired out, you tag your partner comes in and continue the match, so that you will not tire out, because it's a long haul journey. It's not about sending your child to DAS, go for weekly training, and then you solve the problem, yeah, or any other form of intervention. It's really an ongoing journey that will last for years and years. For those of us who have gone through, you know, all these years of parenting, and we know that it will be long-lasting. So you need to tag team so that you can pace yourself. And one important point that's not in the slide, especially for I'm speaking on behalf of men and fathers, is you need to give yourself more margin. Give yourself more margin means to give yourself more buffer. You know, a lot of men tend to put your focus in your work. Some men even define yourself by the work that you do. Yeah, so you need to be very watchful on that. You need to pace yourself at work so that you have enough margin when you are home to take care of the needs at home. Yeah. Earlier on, Tina mentioned that during COVID period, besides managing John's special needs, Paul went into a whole bout of anxiety. So that gave me the impetus to actually take a whole year off from work. I actually handed over my director's role, and I took a whole year without pay on sabbatical, open-ended sabbatical. Yeah, until the time where the boys told me that Daddy has spent enough time at home, now you can go back to work. So then I went back to work gradually, half-time, 2/3 time, and then only since last year I went back work full-time. Yeah, even though Tina is a full-time mom, so we're just depending on our savings. Yeah, so men, if you feel that there's a need for you to create more margin, don't be afraid to scale down your work so that you can tag team more with your wife to take care of the children at home. And when your home front is well taken care of, that will give you a lot more support in the work that you do. Yeah, so that to me is a very important aspect. Yeah, because you can't tag team with your wife if you don't have the buffer to do so. Yeah, so having that margin, having that buffer is very important.
Yeah, I think just one thing to add in this slide first, one of the ways that we have this little like motto, when things go wrong, when meltdowns happen and like we didn't bring the right thing, we didn't feed him, the children are hungry, or like, things are just like going chaotic. One thing which we started to say to ourselves was, let's just make it work. Okay, let's just make it work. Because it's so easy to blame, right? So easy to, I told you, like you should have fed him after you picked him from tuition, and then now you come here, and blah, 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 right? Or like, you shouldn't have gone out with your parents, he cannot tahan this kind of sit-down dinner, right? A lot of things to like blame here and there, and like, why did you bring the iPad? You forgot to tell him cannot have iPad, or whatever, there's always, and something works one day, the next day it may not work, right? So, we really learn to hold my breath, I, especially, I'm more the verbal one, right? And just say, let's make it work. Because it's very easy to jump. Either blame yourself, blame your spouse, blame whatever. And then you get so overwhelmed because already you're overwhelmed at that moment. And when you start blaming, you handicap yourself. Yeah, so that's one thing that you can even take in when you are working with parents and you see that one parent is very overwhelmed and they don't know what to do. You can actually say it to them too. You can even say, hey, we'll work it out. Let's work it out. That's a way. Yeah, and then you help them to calm down, right? Because otherwise it's always, okay, what's wrong? And who's to do this and who's to do that? And I need to go for this, for that, Yeah. So what are the, I think to encapsulate what mums need and what dads need, I thought that we would speak opposite, okay? So I will say what I feel dads need from what I've learned, right? And then Frankie will actually share what mums need. So dads actually need a lot of respect, yeah? And I think that's where when we find out more as women, and we may go ahead in the knowledge-wise, sometimes the way we deliver that information back to the husband can be very disrespectful because we are impatient. We've gone so far ahead. You go for the TNM Skills Future thing, right? Learn about ADHD, spend 16 hours, or go for whatever caregiver course, or, go for spark training, whatever, right? You equip yourself, and then you turn around, you look at your husband lagging behind, right? And then doing things that are like so archaic. Like I used to do that last year because I didn't know better. Now look at you, right? And it comes across, right? And we end up emotional about it too. Like, can you like get with the program kind of thing, right? But then it's very unhelpful because when you don't respect your husbands, you rob them of the desire to do anything for the family. Okay, that's something very unique to men. They need our respect. Yeah, and remember, no one asked you to marry this husband, right? You are the one who chose your own husband. But of course, life happens and sometimes you doubt yourself. But please go back to your romantic time. Remember your choices because the person hasn't changed or disappeared. But life, of course, demands a lot out of us, right? And the what we become, we function as a parent and all that, we forget that sweetness that was between the two. Yeah, so always go back to that and show that respect, right? Even for myself, there are many times I have to remind myself, and I say it even. I'll say, hey, I used to think that too, or I used to do that and then I realized it didn't help. But then, I would do this instead. So that's why, like Frankie said, we do have to use the information and the knowledge because men do like facts. So they don't want us just to be all emotional and because and then that's why you cannot, yes, that will be part of it lah, but try to like reduce, go and cry to your female friends, but with your husband, can have tears, but has to have a lot of facts too. You have to go say like, how did you get there? How did you change the way you were thinking, right? How did I adopt a new mindset? It's because I also had a wrong mindset. So be humble enough to admit so that he can also realize that, so this training actually helped you to open your eyes, right? So these facts actually revealed certain things to you, and therefore you are willing to be different now. And I think when you start from that point, you allow the husband to come on board more readily. And the other part, which is not exactly a societal norm nowadays, but I think it's still special in relationships, there's always a leader. Huh? It's always a leader. And I know you might think it's traditional that men lead, but it's often the way we were wired because they are genetically stronger. They command more even normative standards. People take them seriously, right? They take themselves seriously. There is a special thing when you allow them to take a lead. So there are certain times when I'm stuck. Also, I know I'm also more emotional, right? So we have a lot of, and we want to consider the 10,000 options kind of thing. And then I will give the final say, or at least bring him into the picture and say, so what should we do, right? Or how? And often he will go, let's just do this. Sometimes I still struggle, no, I don't think that's the better way. But sometimes I have to tell myself, what's there to lose? And all the more I'm allowing him to take a lead. Anyway, I wasn't even certain, right? If I'm certain, then I will be maybe more persuasive. And letting him lead, I think, really helps because he knows then his input is valued. And therefore, like when he talks about having the bandwidth, he knows that if he has the bandwidth, he's around, he will be involved. If they avail themselves as husbands and they want to be around, and then you turn around to them and say, hey, hello, you are very annoying, like you're the extra person to take care of. Can you please just go to work? A lot of mothers say that, please, that's, so I as a mother can tell you all that, right? Don't say that because you need to involve them. If they are at that level, means you're not utilizing their strengths. They have a lot of strengths that can be used, and especially if you have sons, sons really need to hear from fathers. Yeah, they hear the same thing from the father compared to the mother. By a certain age, especially teenage, they need the father's leadership a lot. Yeah.
Okay, and for the men, you need to trust your wives. Trust that their observations are valid. So you can even affirm her, empower them to do even more research, to tally the facts with their observations.
That's why I'm doing the masters, right?
Yeah.
Not him.
So it's important to really trust and important to listen to them. Don't doubt that they are almost overly emotional, that they're just in the clouds, but they are not, anchored firmly on facts, on the issues. So listen to them. I think mothers, women love to be listened. Yeah, that is something which they will feel, make them go even further. Yeah, go even further to find out more about the issue. So that's key. Yeah. So when you tag team in that way, as what Tina mentioned, then you find that both can play very strong complementary roles. Yeah. For men, a lot of you can lead and empower, delegate in a workplace, do that in the home front. Yeah. You can delegate your wife, you can empower her to do certain things. So then your wife will feel that she's being led, she's being affirmed, she's being listened to. That tag team, that complementary tag team is very powerful. Because in this journey, most often one of you will be overworked. Yeah, then that becomes even more tiring. It's very difficult to continue. So you need to pace yourself, need to complement each other so that the journey is meaningful. It's through the challenges that we find our marriage, our relationship, our parenting journey even more meaningful over the years. Yeah, it's an irony to have children with special needs, but at the same time, it makes your life even more fulfilling because you are truly contributing in your roles as parents. You're not just doing it mechanically, everything outsourced, especially in a society like Singapore, right? You work very hard, you have the financial means to outsource everything when your child is young, then you actually lose focus on what being, a parent means. Yeah. So that's the heart that we have, the joy that we have, even as we share our journey, and and hope that it's useful to you. Look forward to engaging some of you later on the site as well.
Thank you very much.